A new report has established that 63% of female students in Nigerian universities have been sexually harassed. The research, called the Campus Climate Baseline Survey on the Prevalence of Sexual Harassment, was carried out by a civil society organization, Alliances for Africa, in collaboration with Centers for Gender Studies in Nigerian universities, supported by Co-Impact Gender Fund. The Executive Director, Alliances for Africa, Obibi, said the extensive research was undertaken in 12 selected universities across Nigeria. According to her, these findings confirm that sexual harassment persists, not as isolated incidents, but as a systemic failure across Nigeria's tertiary institutions.
We're here because we have a crisis, and we are here to think as Nigerian parents, guardians, aunties, uncles, to revisit what can we do in our small corner. Our findings are stark and undeniable. 63% of female students reported experiencing sexual assault. This is from the Campus Climate Baseline Survey. It is one of the preliminary findings that came out of the survey. So it's not figures that have been plucked from the sky. We had to do the survey because we were getting requests to do the survey.
Provided for safe spaces. So there is also a planned activity in which within the next year, God willing, we're going to have trainings for counselors and then also help institutions to set up safe spaces or reporting facilities that students can feel free and confident to come forward and report these incidences and know that they will be handled effectively.
A very, very sensitive topic, this issue of sexual harassment in Nigerian universities. Now let's have this conversation with Ms. Obibi, who is the Executive Director, Alliances for Africa, and Professor Awhefeada, the Director, Center for Gender Development Center, Delta State University, Abraka. Well, ladies, this is one situation I'm really not relishing finding myself in, but then we definitely would have to have this conversation. So the issue of prevalence of sexual harassment in our tertiary institutions. Let me just ask this question: how bad is it, Awhefeada?
Yes, indeed, the issue of sexual harassment in Nigerian universities and tertiary institutions is one that is rife. I can tell you with the backing of experience that it's commonplace in our tertiary institutions, and we've always said this, but these reports that will be presented formally tomorrow to the general public lends credence to our voice and to the fact that sexual harassment is very, very common indeed, and now is the appropriate time to invite critical stakeholders to the table to discuss these issues and to
okay.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, go on. I just didn't mean to interrupt.
The idea behind the summit is bringing together critical stakeholders to ensure that we strengthen mechanisms for bringing this menace to the barest minimum in our tertiary institutions.
Any idea how long this has been going on? I mean, you say it's prevalent. If it's prevalent, that means that it must have been going on unabated for a while. How long? What timeline can you put on this?
Yes, for example, like I said, with the backing of experience, I've been in the university system for over 2 decades, and I can tell you with emphasis that sexual harassment is very, very commonplace. The problem is that there's this fear, this culture of silence that is fueled by fear of victimization and stigmatization and what have you. And so a number of students, especially female students that are affected by the issue of sexual harassment, find it difficult to come out to report this incidents of sexual harassment. So now that's why we are trying to come together to look for ways, pick out the best practices in the various institutions and see how we can create safe reporting mechanisms for victims, as it were.
What
survivors.
exactly makes it difficult for them to come out?
Yes, like I just said, there are a good number of factors, socio-cultural factors, but over and above all that, there's the fear of reprisal or victimization by these girls that are affected by sexual harassment, that have suffered sexual harassment. They are usually afraid to come out because sometimes these perpetrators of sexual violence work in cahoots with other lecturers, other staff in the system and other persons in the system. So even if they are not victimized by the person directly perpetrating the harassment, somebody in that circle, in that clique.
Somebody within that clique. Yeah, they would definitely have collaborators.
Yes.
I can add figures to
Absolutely.
that. Factors contributing to silence and underreporting. Over 80% of respondents identified key factors of perpetrating a culture of silence. 80%.
80%. That's a massive figure.
So these include fear of stigma and social to be ostracized, absence of adequate institutional support and resources, power imbalances between the victims and the perpetrators, a lack of clear policies and guidelines. Who do you report to? When do you report the incidents? And finally, as Prof rightly said, societal norms and perceptions that discourage survivors from speaking out.
Interesting.
So we have a real problem on our hands. And so at the end of the day, what are the systemic changes all of us can take part in at the different levels we work in within the system?
Or more directly speaking, what exactly then would you be doing to encourage these girls who are sexually harassed to come out and face their perpetrators? Because let it not be as if, okay, fine, these people who are sexually harassing us are influential, so we have to run and hide. So what exactly would you be doing to encourage them to come out and face it?
No. Let's be clear. It's not what I will be doing. It's what the system...
You, in this case, is generic.
Yeah, the system. What will the system be doing? So it is about safe reporting, as Professor clearly identified, safe reporting mechanisms. We need to make sure that they have sexual harassment policies in place with clear guidelines on enforcement mechanisms for perpetrators and reporting mechanisms for those that are victims. At the same time, we need to also make sure that whilst there's a reporting mechanism in place, there's the idea of counseling centers, psychosocial support, because for the very young victims, as we know, some universities take the children in from 16 to 18. They are even more victims because they're harassed by females, by other male students, as well as by male academic staff.
Absolutely. Now,
yes, if I have to just say a word with regards to what she just said, just to make the point that as gender directors in our various universities, because this summit is a coming together of gender directors in collaboration with the Alliances for Africa. At the heart of our mandate as gender directors is the implementation of two core policies, that is the gender policy as well as the sexual harassment policy. Now, a number of universities that has a gender center do not have a gender sexual harassment policy. And for those that have this policy, how vigorously is it being implemented within the university? How is it left? Is it a policy that is just left on the shelf, or it is being vigorously implemented within the space of the university? So what one of the fallouts of this summit will be that institutions that have gender center that do not have an extant or an existing sexual harassment policy will be able to set machinery in motion to have their gender policies drafted and adopted by the Senate of the university, and then they'll have to start running to vigorously ensure the implementation of the contents of the policy that includes stipulating what constitutes sexual harassment and the penalties for the perpetrators.
Now, some years back, that must have been around 2018, 2019, there was this situation where a lecturer was actually outed by a female student he was harassing. You know, I think it was a case of sex for marks in one of the southwestern universities. You know, the details are a bit hazy now, but well, the student actually outed this lecturer. It became public knowledge, and the man was the lecturer was actually suspended and then eventually laid off. You know, but that was. Yeah, there was a second incident like that as well. A female student actually recording conversations they had with lecturers who were out to harass them, and then, of course, it became a public knowledge and action was taken appropriately. Now, using this as an example, what would you be suggesting for those female students who face situations like this? All right.
Yes, if I may respond to that, we'll tell female students that they should have the courage to speak up and to speak out, because as lecturers and workers in the university space, we stand in loco parentis to these students, and there are always mechanisms in place. For example, in my university, there is a multifaceted approach to handling sexual harassment. So there are multiple streams of reporting. There are several officers of the university you could make a formal report to. So there is no fear at all, because when they have the boldness to come out and speak out against these perpetrators, you find that the university puts machinery in motion immediately to have them tried. But over and above that, I want to further suggest that in addition to the administrative penalties that these lecturers or perpetrators, even non-academic staff get involved in sexual harassment, over and above that, they should be handed over to the law enforcement agency for prosecution.
Okay.
Because whatever penalty is meted at the university level does not remove from the fact that sexual harassment constitutes a crime under Nigerian law. So it should be two-pronged. And this will further serve to deter prospective perpetrators from going ahead to carry out these acts.
Ms. Obibi, I'm curious to know the females occupying positions of authority in the various tertiary institutions. What exactly has been their own reactions or contributions towards, you know, dealing with this very sensitive situation? I mean, of course, it's the male counterparts who harass the female students. So what are the female lecturers, so to say, doing about this? I mean, did your study cover that as well?
Yes, it did. I think we need to be realistic that the study didn't just cover female students or female lecturers. It covered students, academic and non-academic staff as well.
Yeah.
So you had a survey that looked at a holistic institution. We have female lecturers that have also been harassed by male students. It's there in the study. The figures are there, yes.
Female lecturers who have been
harassed
by male
students and male lecturers who so happen to be senior than them in the hierarchy of the educational institution. So the myth that is only females is a myth. It's a very systemic problem. Now, what are the female leadership doing? We also have to recognize that the percentage of women that are in leadership positions are quite small. So with the exception of those that are in the Center for Gender Studies, there are not many of them in higher positions of authority to exercise the kind of power or wield the kind of power that you would anticipate. That doesn't mean they're not there, it's just that they're not there in large numbers.
Okay, so it's now a game of numbers now.
Yes, it's now a game of numbers, and that is important to note, because perpetrators in the system are a clique, and that's one of the things we discovered. So when we ask female victims or victims to report, they may report, but what happens with the institution is sometimes they set up an investigation committee. That investigation committee could be dead on the water if the perpetrator has friends that's the chairperson or is on the committee. That is not going anywhere. And that is one of the things the students complained about. And it's in the study as well.
Yes. Well, we've got a minute left now, so quickly, charity begins at home. And these are, students who are being harassed are someone's children. As parents, what should we do to ensure that this doesn't get out of hand or doesn't happen at all?
I think we should make demands on the schools and the institutions. I think as parents, we have a legal duty of care. When we send our children to these universities, we expect them to look after our children. And if it's not working, one of the things we do, and we do it very well, is in the hands of God. I'm not complaining anymore. He will meet his karma. That's not good enough. It's no longer good enough, because we are creating a generation of traumatized young people that is affecting everything, their relationship in work, their relationship with their families. No, but if your child shuts down, you don't know why your child has shut down. But if you really do investigate, you find that they're having problems in school. So I think that all of us have parents, guardians, aunties, uncles, and all those have a duty of care to young people. And it's for us to change the system. And I would ask all of us on air, what are you doing in your corner where you are?
With that question, I think this will be a very appropriate place to rest this discussion. It was actually more interesting than I thought it was going to be. So thank you very much, Professor Awhefeada, Director, Center for Gender and Development, Delta State University, and Ms. Obibi, Executive Director, Alliances for Africa.